Hello everybody, my name is T.U.S.K and welcome to part 1 of the Wuthering Waves Resonator Forte Examination Report. In this video, we will go over the Forte Examination reports of a few existing resonators in Wuthering Waves. In this episode, we will go over the reports of the following resonators: Rover, Calcharo, Encore, Jianxin, and Baje. Most of the information I provide will be based on my interpretation of the various lore information in the game. As such, if you would like to make your own interpretation of the reports, please feel free to check out the corresponding reports for each resonator in-game. The game also has a history of mistranslating text. If you find any mistakes or perhaps have a better understanding of some of the topics discussed in this video, please feel free to comment down below. Before beginning our analysis of their examination reports, let's go and review a few important terms that some of you may not be familiar with. Ecoacoustics. Ecoacoustics is an interdisciplinary science that investigates natural and anthropogenic sounds and their relationship with the environment over a wide range of study scales, both spatial and temporal, including populations, communities, and landscapes. Forte. Forte are the various abilities that resonators wield and use during combat. Non-convergent. Non-convergent means never meeting or crossing. Rebel's curve. I don't know what the hell this is, but it is used to classify a resonator into one of the following: natural, mutant, and congenital. Non-convergent Rebel's curve. I have two interpretations of what this whole term means. One is that each resonator has their own curve that does not converge with Rebel's curve. This means Rebel's curve could be a specific curve that all resonators' curves are being compared to as a way to identify each class of resonators, i.e. natural, mutant, or congenital. My second interpretation is that each resonator has a Rebel curve, and this curve does not converge on itself, meaning their curves do not intersect. With that said, I still don't know what is Rebel's curve. Syntony. There is a variety of definitions for this word, but for the sake of simplicity and for our sanity, I will define this word as a matching of frequencies, or in other words, two frequency patterns match and produces a weak or strong reaction if the two patterns match. Resonance spectrum pattern, as it stands, is used in the examination reports to identify the similarity between a resonator's resonance spectrum pattern and the pattern of the frequencies of an existing thing or being in the world of Wuthering Waves. As previously mentioned, everything in the world of Wuthering Waves is made up of frequencies or vibrating sounds. My guess is that the resonance spectrum depicts a spectrum of the resonator's resonance powers to match the different frequencies of objects that a resonator can resonate with and manipulate. That said, I did discover something that might break your understanding of the world of Wuthering Waves, because I myself had a hard time coming to terms with this new piece of lore I discovered. More on that later. Waveform. In electronics, acoustics, and related fields, the waveform of a signal is the shape of its graph as a function of time, independent of its time, and magnitude scales and of any displacement in time. Here are some examples of waveforms. Time domain. Time domain may be referring to the analysis of mathematical functions, physical signals, or time series of economic or environmental data with respect to time. Or in other words, it is the display of a mathematical graph with respect to time. Other relevant terms could be frequency domain and Fourier transform. If you would like to learn more about waveforms, spectrums, time domain, frequency domains, and Fourier transform, I linked a playlist down below in the description. It contains a few interesting things about sound waves or frequencies you might want to check out. Now that we've reviewed a few unfamiliar terms, we can begin. We will start with our main character, Rover. But first, I want to disclose that Rover does not have a Resonator Forte examination report. However, there is one archive text in the game that we can use to help us. In our inventory, there is an archive text called the First Resonator. This archive text provides us all the information we need to create our own examination report for Rover. I went over this archive text in one of my previous videos, so if you would like to check it out, please feel free to click the video card on the top right section of the screen. With that said, let's continue with Rover's examination report. Gender is male or female, based on player's preference. Birthplace is unknown. Affiliations. Rover is affiliated with the Black Shores and is also known as Jinzhou's founder. Resonance power. Unknown, but capable of absorbing and harnessing various frequencies, and when exerting their forte, their tacit mark and pupils display a golden halo. Time of awakening is unknown. The location of their tacit mark is on their right hand. Resonance abilities and utilization of their forte. Rover is known to be capable of harnessing the power of Spectro and Havoc, and as the main MC of the game, it is predicted that they may be able to harness every single type of element in the game. As such, we can dub their ability as frequency absorption. Resonance spectrum pattern shows a strong syntony response with multiple patterns. Cause of awakening is unknown. Class of resonator. Their test samples reveal a non-convergent Rebel's curve with a periodic waveform. As such, they are classified as a congenital resonator or born as a resonator. Resonator's waveform. Rover's waveform shows elliptical fluctuations. Rover's pattern of time domain is stable and illustrates no abnormal waveforms. Resonant criticality. Rover shows no risk of overclocking. History with overclocking. Rover has no documented history of overclocking. Additional notes. Resonator fought during the Battle of Gorgeous Spirits along with Jue. Has a history of amnesia. Rover may have Alzheimer's disease. Our next resonator for analysis will be Calcharo. Gender is male. Birthplace, New Federation. Affiliation. Calcharo is the leader of the Ghost Hounds, which is an international mercenary group. Resonance power, Phantom Hunters. Time of awakening is unclear. However, according to Calcharo himself, he naturally awakened to protect himself against extended exposure to hostile environments and life-threatening situations. Calcharo's location of tacit mark is the forehead. Residence abilities or utilization of their forte. Calcharo's forte can transform his body to manifest a golden core in his chest and display characteristics of tacit discords. His body possesses a significantly higher amount of bioelectrical energy compared to the average human. He displays exceptional awareness of and control over electric currents and magnetic forces. Resonance spectrum pattern. Calcharo's resonance spectrum pattern shows a striking resemblance to tacit discords. Calcharo's cause of awakening. The exact cause for Calcharo's awakening is unknown. Class of resonator. Test samples suggest a non-convergent Rebel's curve with a gradual rise. As such, Calcharo is classified as a natural resonator. Calcharo's waveform is abnormal. It illustrates zigzag fluctuations and shows segments of partial fuzziness. Calcharo's pattern of time domain is irregular. Both upper and lower peak values are high and in close proximity to the criticality level. Calcharo's resonant criticality is relatively high. Combined with extremely low stability, Calcharo's risk of overclocking is substantial. History with overclocking. Calcharo has a history of overclocking, and his highest recorded rating of overclocking is severe. Additional notes about the resonator Calcharo. During overclocking, signs of tacit discord erosion spreads on his body, and the golden tacit core on his chest flickers. His frequency fluctuations intensify significantly, and multiple phantom-like entities appear. Calcharo's overclocking seems to have a high risk of occurring due to an unidentified trigger. The next resonator for evaluation is Encore. Gender? Female. Birthplace? New Federation. Affiliation. Encore is a consultant from the Black Shores. Resonance power. Woolly counting game. Time of awakening, unknown. Location of tacit mark, upper back. Resonance abilities or utilization of their forte. According to Encore's reports and resonance inspection, the sheep-like entities that accompany her are considered to be manifestations of her imagination and psychological state. They are believed to represent her resonance power or forte. Resonance spectrum pattern. According to the in-game reports, Encore's resonance assessment was found to be influenced by the collective emotion in the testing environment, exhibiting a strong syntony response. This text suggests that Encore's resonance ability is affected by the collective emotions in her surrounding environment. I'm not quite sure what they mean by this, as was previously mentioned that Encore's woolies are manifestations of her own imagination and psychological state, not the environment. Perhaps they're suggesting that her environment affects her mood or psychological state. But well, obviously, our environment affects our mood, so I'm not quite sure why they are emphasizing this information. However, if we take their words literally, which is that the source of Encore's resonance power is from the emotions in her environment, this confirms that everything, as in everything, in Wuthering Waves are made up of frequencies or sound waves. This piece of lore information suggests that emotions can provide a syntony response and are made up of frequencies. Although I find it hard to believe, since I can't imagine emotions to be made up of anything, as it is a mental construct. However, this will prove useful in later theories, as now we can theorize that everything in Wuthering Waves has a frequency. Encore's cause of awakening is unknown. Class of resonator. According to Encore's test samples, it reveals a non-convergent Rebel's curve with a noticeable periodic waveform, which classifies Encore as a congenital resonator. Encore's waveform is abnormal. It shows zigzag fluctuations and displays segments of partial fuzziness. Encore's pattern of time domain is irregular. Both upper and lower peaks are high and are close to the criticality level. Encore's resonant criticality is relatively high. Combined with low stability, Encore's risk of overclocking is significantly high. Encore has no documented history of overclocking. Additional notes about Encore. Post-awakening examinations reveal minor physical mutations, including wool-like hair tips. In times of heightened emotional states, she may also manifest sheep-like horns. Our next resonator in our Forte examinations report is Jianshin. Gender, female. Birthplace, Huanglong. Affiliations, resident of Jinzhou, a Taoist monk and successor of Feng Yi Quan. Resonance power, cleansing reflections. Time of awakening, 3 years ago. Location of tacit mark, left shoulder. Resonance abilities, or utilization of their forte. Jianshin can manipulate the airflow and create force fields. Jianshin's resonance spectrum pattern shows a 5% similarity between 10 objects, but none over 20%. As such, they cannot be determined. I could assume that this may have something to do with the 10 precepts in Taoism, but the game mentions 10 objects, and the 10 precepts are rules. Could the rules be in Wuthering Waves be made of frequencies as well? I mean, they did say everything in Wuthering Waves are made up of frequencies, so who knows? Jianshin's cause of awakening was not triggered by any specific events. It happened naturally, or as a natural awakening. Class of Resonator. Jianshin's test samples reveals a non-convergent Rebel's curve with a stable rise and occasional fluctuations within the normal range. As such, she is a natural resonator. No descriptions were provided for Jianshin's waveform. However, they state that it illustrates a stable time domain. It matches the standard fluctuations patterns perfectly, and no abnormal parameters were observed. Jianshin's resonant criticality is high, however her frequency displays a high stability, so her risk of overclocking is minimal. History with overclocking. Jianshin has no documented history of overclocking. Additional notes about Jianshin. Her strike velocity can reach 340 meters per second. Details regarding her force fields remain inconclusive, and her forte exhibits potential further development. Kuro might be hinting that we might see another version of Jianshin in the future. Our next resonator for the report will be Baiji. Gender, female. Birthplace, Huanglong. Affiliation, resident of Jinzhou, researcher from Huakshu Academy, and specializes in remnant echoacoustics. Resonance power, healing, Yotan. Time of awakening. Baiji awakened 4 years ago, when she was exposed to a strong source of remnant energy 1 year before her awakening. Baiji's location of tacit mark is on the anterior side of her right thigh. Resonance abilities, or utilization of their forte. Baiji cannot directly utilize her forte, however, she can leverage existing extremely low temperatures and her remnant creature's healing abilities to treat injuries in her vicinity. Resonance spectrum pattern. Baiji's resonance spectrum pattern does not resemble any known frequencies. However, it does show a certain level of similarity with the fluctuations of remnant energy, and her spectrum pattern does possess a strong syntony response with Yotan. Cause of awakening. The exposure to a strong remnant energy source activated corresponding remnant frequencies within Baiji. Then, a year later, when she experienced a strong urge to revive a teammate, the remnant frequencies within her manifested as a remnant creature, Yotan. This manifestation of Yotan was Baiji's moment of awakening. However, on a side note, the report on Baiji mentions that the exact cause of Baiji's awakening is unclear, without adequate theoretical evidence, which in a way contradicts my previous statements. But what I believe they mean to say is that the exact conditions and factors needed for Baiji's awakening are unknown. Class of Resonator. Baiji's test samples reveals a non-convergent Rebel's curve with a gradual increase followed by a steep rise in its middle section. She is a mutant resonator with a dormant period. This potentially hints at a new, more powerful version of Baiji in the future. Baiji's waveform illustrates an elliptical fluctuation. Baiji's pattern of time domain is stable and no abnormal parameters are observed. Baiji's resonant criticality is high and her frequency displays high stability. As such, she has no risk of overclocking. Baiji has no documented history of overclocking. Additional notes about Baiji. Due to the strong bond between Baiji and Yotan, examinations on the remnant creature are recommended to mitigate any potential latent risks. When exerting her forte, her tacit marks emits a faint white glow with the advent of the remnant creature. Yotan is translucent white in color and resembles the petals of Epiphyllum. It is also unable to vocalize in human language, but can communicate with Baiji through telepathy. And with that, I'll see you in part 2 of the Wuthering Waves Resonator Forte Examination Report.
They come down, but I wear the crown. Rise from the ground, make no sound.